didn't notice the silence at first. Not truly. It wasn't sudden, more like something peeling back, layer by layer. I'd wake up and feel like the world was still sleeping, even when it wasn't. The hum of the refrigerator was a little quieter. The wind outside my apartment window didn't howl so much as breathe. The voices on TV, though I heard them, didn't echo in my mind like they used to. Conversations at work, muted, like someone turned the volume down and forgot to turn it back up. But silence, real silence. It's not just an absence of sound. It has weight, and it listens. I moved into this apartment a year ago after my divorce finalized. Nothing dramatic, just two people unraveling in slow motion. We didn't scream, we didn't break things, we just fell silent around each other. Ironic, now that I think of it. The new place was on the 5th floor of an old building tucked between a shuttered church and an overgrown cemetery. I know. I wasn't exactly winning the optimism contest when I signed the lease, but it was cheap, and something about the quiet here appealed to me. The walls were thick, no loud neighbors, no street noise, no screaming kids. It was peaceful. That peace didn't last. It started with the mirror. Not a cracked mirror or a haunted one or anything like that. Just the one in the bathroom above the sink. I'd catch myself staring into it longer than I should. Not at myself exactly, more like listening. I don't know how else to explain it. I'd brush my teeth and feel like something just behind the glass was waiting for me to notice it, not watching, waiting. Sometimes I'd talk to myself to break the tension. "Get it together, Marcus," I'd mutter. "You're just lonely." But that's when I started to notice something else. The silence. It answered back. Not with words, not at first. It was a sensation, a cold shift in the air, like the room was breathing in the spaces between my sentences. Then came the dreams. In them, I was always standing in my bathroom. Same pale walls, same flickering light above the mirror. But everything else, gone. The sink, the tub, the floor, they all melted into darkness. I would just stand there and stare into the mirror, but in the dreams, my reflection didn't move when I did. It just stared back, unmoving, unblinking, like it wasn't mine. One night, my reflection opened its mouth. No sound came out, just a thick, choking silence that poured from its mouth and filled the room like smoke. When I woke up, I couldn't breathe. My apartment was pitch black, though I knew I'd left the hall light on. The silence pressed in on me like water. I scrambled for my phone, but even the screen light felt wrong, like it was flickering behind a sheet of fog. That's when I started, hearing the other silence, not the absence of noise, but a presence. It came in pulses, mostly at night, around 3:13 a.m., like clockwork. I'd jolt awake, my ears ringing, and the silence would be so thick it drowned out even the blood in my ears. I would lie there, rigid, trying to listen for anything. Cars outside, plumbing, wind. But there was nothing, no sound, no world beyond my walls. And within that void, I felt it. The silence was looking at me. I stopped sleeping, stopped going to work. I told my boss I had the flu, then food poisoning. Then I stopped answering entirely. My phone started to feel loud in my hand, like it hurt to touch. Every word spoken or written became like sandpaper to my skull. I needed quiet, the real kind, the kind the silence seemed to offer me, but it always wanted more. I started unplugging things, the fridge, the TV, the router, anything that hummed or blinked or chirped. I tore the smoke alarm from the ceiling when it beeped to tell me the battery was low. Every time I did, the silence approved. I could feel it settle deeper into the walls. It liked when I listened. I stopped talking, even to myself. That's when it started speaking back. The first time I heard it, I was lying on the floor of the bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan. It wasn't on. It never had been. I didn't like the way it ticked. I hadn't said anything aloud in days. Then, clear as day, but not spoken aloud. I heard something. Not in my ears. In my mind. You finally understand. I sat up so fast I cracked my head on the nightstand. The words echoed, even though they hadn't made a sound. I could feel them. Sharp, precise, cold. I staggered into the bathroom, heart pounding. I stared into the mirror, expecting to see something else. Someone else. But it was just me, until it smiled. I didn't. I know that doesn't make sense, but my face didn't move. My reflection smiled, and then it spoke. Noise is a lie. The words came not from its mouth, not from the glass, but from inside me, like they'd always been there, waiting. I slammed the bathroom door and didn't go back in for 2 days. I started hearing the silence during the day, now. I'd look out the window and watch the world move without sound. Cars sped by without engines. A dog barked without a voice. Children played with mouths open and no laughter escaping. The silence was spreading, not just in my apartment, in me. The more I let it in, the more it showed me. Not visions exactly, impressions. Memories I don't remember making. One in particular was a boy, small, maybe 5 or 6, sitting in a closet, hugging my knees while voices screamed behind the door. The crack beneath the door flickered with footsteps and shouting. Then a sudden silence that came too fast, too sharp. And in that moment, I remember thinking, if I stay quiet, I'll disappear. I'd forgotten that moment, or maybe buried it. But the silence remembered. It had found me there. It grew stronger. It told me things. Not with words, not always, but in clarity. It would show me flashes, memories, ideas, fears, all stripped of language. It didn't want me to speak. It wanted me to listen. It told me the world is broken by noise, that pain rides on sound waves, that lies wear voices, that silence is the only truth. And part of me agreed. I started taping the windows. Not with tape, too noisy, but with towels, pillows, anything to absorb the sound. I wore socks over my hands so my fingers wouldn't make noise when I scratched. My skin. I stopped flushing the toilet. I stopped chewing. I ground my food into paste and swallowed it raw. The silence rewarded me. Sometimes I'd float. Not my body. My thoughts. I'd drift above the ceiling, watching myself curled up below, and the silence would hold me like a blanket made of ash and sleep. It whispered, "You are almost ready." I thought it was going to take me, that it wanted me to become part of, that I was wrong. It wanted to come through me. That realization hit one night during another dream, if it was a dream. I stood in the bathroom again, the mirror now stretched from wall to wall, top to bottom. I couldn't see myself, only the other side. It looked like my apartment, but empty. Gutted. White, cracked walls, floor-to-ceiling silence bleeding from the seams. And something was in it, not moving, waiting. I knew if I spoke, if I so much as whispered, it would hear me, it would cross over. I tried to make noise, anything. I clapped, screamed, played music. Nothing worked. My speakers wouldn't turn on. My voice came out as breath, not sound. It was in me now, woven into my thoughts like a parasite. I broke every plate in my kitchen just to hear the crash. Nothing. Then one night, at 3:13 a.m., I finally heard a sound. A knock. Just one. From the bathroom door. I hadn't shut it. Not for weeks. I didn't move. The knock came again, and a third time. Then, silence again. I turned to face the door, and for the first time in days, I spoke. No, the silence screamed. It didn't make a noise, but I felt it rupture inside me, like glass exploding in my chest. I fell to the floor, gasping, convulsing, as if my soul was being torn from sound. I crawled, I clawed at the walls. I tried to scream again. I forced air from my lungs. No! And that single word cracked it. Not the silence, but its hold on me. My ears rang with the sound of my own breath. I heard the electricity hum in the walls. The wind slammed against the glass. My refrigerator roared back to life, and from behind the bathroom door, I heard it speak, not in silence, but in a voice that sounded like mine, warped, ancient, cracked and hollow. You could have been peace. I ran. They found me 3 days later, curled in the stairwell, covered in blood that wasn't mine. I hadn't hurt anyone. They said I must have broken the mirror, cut myself up, but I wasn't bleeding, and the blood didn't match anyone in the building. They put me under psychiatric observation. The doctors speak too loudly. Their words are blunt instruments, shattering every fragile thought I managed to form. But I'm learning to live with the noise again. I keep a radio playing at all times. I talk to myself in the mirror. I laugh, even when I don't feel like it, just to keep the silence away. Because I know now what it really is. Not absence, but presence, a thing that waits and watches and whispers without words. It doesn't want to be alone. It wants to be heard. And I still hear it, sometimes. In the gaps between conversations, in the hush before a storm, in the moment after the lights go out and the dark leans in. It's always there, listening, waiting for me to forget again, waiting for me to be quiet.